Let's go.
You're listening to Making Data Simple, where we make the world of data effortless, relevant, and yes, even fun.
Podcast listeners, you've found your way back to Making Data Simple, and I greatly appreciate that as always. Today, I have Ralph Gootee. He's the CTO and co-founder of TigerEye. It's a company focused on strategic sales intelligence. Prior to TigerEye, Ralph co-founded PlanGrid, a construction productivity software company acquired by Autodesk. His background includes roles in Pixar and Sony, so he's got an extensive experience. With that, I'm just going to jump right in and say thank you, Ralph. Welcome to our humble show. I'm glad that you took the time to be here with us.
Well, thank you very much for having me. My name's Ralph Gootee. As said, I'm the CTO and co-founder of TigerEye. This is my second startup. The first one was called PlanGrid in the construction space. I really enjoyed that. My background's actually mathematics. Before I went into doing startups, I was actually going to do my doctorate. And thankfully, I had some co-founders really talk me into it. And I was very lucky to be able to kind of enjoy the first run of mobile-first software at PlanGrid and really take advantage of that wave. And with TigerEye, we're at the beginning of an AI first company. So that's very exciting as well. And that's just a little bit about me. I always have to keep it short, whatever I'm doing talks you with.
No, fantastic. So welcome again. Let's jump in with TigerEye, I guess, first. Unless you want to start with PlanGrid, because I have some questions there. Which do you prefer?
Wherever you'd like to go.
What is TigerEye? What problems are you solving today? How'd you end up there, and why are you passionate about what you guys are doing?
So when we were building PlanGrid, one of the jobs I had was actually running the data team. This was, for me, really fascinating. I loved it. As a mathematician, data team, how could it not be exciting? Get to answer all these business questions. We're going to unlock strategic opportunities, and so we built like a very solid data team at the time, like 8 people, few doctorates on the team. Many of these people are either startup founders of successful startups or run data teams at much larger, more successful companies now. So these people are really talented and prove themselves to be talented in the future. But getting to it, it was an expensive team, very expensive team. The results were never really trusted. We had the same type of data stack we see today. It was, just an ETL basic stack. At the time, we were actually one of Fivetran's first customers when they were still a startup. So Fivetran to Redshift with Looker on top of it, a team of 8 people servicing go-to-market questions. The CFO never trusted, I don't think any of the charts that came out of it. CFO only trusted charts that came out of their own team in Excel. At times, this team would take, and this was a good team too. We had a good financial team, but they did everything in spreadsheets. They only ran on the person's personal computer. They were like linked together to other spreadsheets. It was really hard to, we'd always get the answers we need a week later. When we started PlanGrid, we were solving a problem we saw in the construction industry, really simply blueprints on iPad. When we started TigerEye, we were starting a problem we saw when we were building our other company, which was pretty much having access to even basic metrics and understanding of your business was a challenge at early stages and at scale too. So that's just a little bit of like kind of the core problem we're solving. We're very lucky to have been right at the beginning of generative AI as well. I wanted to say like that was a very lucky spot for us. We existed before generative AI, and as soon as generative AI came out, we were predictive AI. We brought them, both predictive and generative AI together, and that's the basis of our current company and product.
So got it. When did you start TigerEye, or when did you move to TigerEye?
Well, we pretty much, as soon as we sold the company, we started thinking about what we might be interested in building next. My partner and I, we're a husband and wife team actually. My co-founder and I, this is our second company.
Don't you get sick of one another? You're working 24/7. You're innovating 24/7. Do you ever say, "I need a break"?
You think I'm taking a break right now to do a podcast.
Yeah, okay, fair enough.
We've got 4 children together as well. So no, we actually for some reason have not said that yet. But she, we both do very different things. She's really good at much different things, like quite technical, and she's really good at sales. So, both keep to our lanes.
Works good. How big is the company right now?
We're about 30 people, including a few contractors. And so mostly engineering, we have a very small go-to-market team, just one sales person, one marketing person, a BD person. But otherwise, they're all engineering talent, all AI and data folks and front end.
But PlanGrid, you talk about it being blueprints. How do you describe that, blueprints on an iPad?
Yeah.
Look, it had to be more than blueprints on an iPad because it was acquired by Autodesk by like 875 million, something like that. So I think you're underselling that just a little bit. So you got to expand, double click a little bit on that.
Oh man, you know what's funny is I remember when we first got acquired and we were sitting through Autodesk's conferences that we were made fun of actually is like Autodesk just internally, they just purchased this company for almost $1 billion. I'm like, well, thank you. It wasn't $1 billion, but thanks for rounding up. Basically it's just a PDF viewer. We got PDF viewers. So blueprints on an iPad was where we started. The cool thing about it is like you're in an elevator and someone asks you what you do. It's like I put blueprints on an iPad. It's so straightforward. You don't need to say much more. It's like, oh, that's a pretty good idea. We did a lot of stuff on top of it. We put issue tracking on top of it, and then we just went into full-on project management, all built concentric circle around put blueprints on iPad. But to be honest with you, most of the functionality, the things PlanGrid did best, all the usage, most of the engagement of our users was viewing a blueprint, going to the next blueprint. Now, we did a lot of work to make the blueprints fast and like AI, like link them together and do all kinds of cool convenience OCR stuff for them. But they also just took photos on top of them and pinned them to blueprints. They took issues on top of them, pinned them to blueprints, and we were really fast. We worked on hospital projects that were tens of thousands of blueprints with hundreds of revisions and thousands of annotations per page. And this type of data was a real challenge for the products at the time, and ours worked. So it was simple. It was hard to build, and it was a fun time.
When did you start that company, and when did you sell it?
2011 was about when we started it, and we sold it, 2019 or so. So a good solid 8-9 years. I mean, it was quite a ride during it. And we worked for Autodesk for a few years afterwards as well.
Still, I like it. I like the simplicity of blueprints in an iPad, but it sounds like it's much more extensive. So how do you go from that to go to TigerEye? You think you maybe retire off into the sunset now?
For me personally, I just enjoy working. It's like what I've always done. I like programming. This is fun for me. This is like what I do. My free time is I spend it programming, surprisingly enough. And, I enjoy a few other things. So thankfully I've got kids to keep me occupied other than programming. Yeah, so this was actually this is what I did for my profession, and this was fun for me, so I just kept doing it. And I tried to do other things. I was for a while a visiting partner at Y Combinator, a startup incubator that, I think the best startup incubator, the best. And, there's lots of other good ones. Y Combinator's solid. And I was a visiting partner there for, about 6 months, one batch. And I really enjoyed it, but it was not for me. VC was not my kind of life. I mean, startup incubation is a little different than full-on VC, but this is just, I like to build things. It's a little hard for me to be on Zoom all day.
I hear you. But so did you bootstrap PlanGrid?
Well, with PlanGrid, we were very lucky. We had Y Combinator actually as our startup. That was, we're YC company, both our PlanGrid and TigerEye. And so for PlanGrid, YC gave us very little at the time. They give a lot more now. And then we were able to fund eventually, but we did ride it for a long time at PlanGrid without funding, enough that we were profitable. And we rode that for a while and then raised more rounds off venture there. And, TigerEye similarly is venture funded. YC funded us as well.
How many clients did you end with on PlanGrid by the time you got acquired?
It was a transactional company. So because it was kind of transactional, we ended up having a lot of great, and I love it. This is like my kind of customers, subcontractors, lots of, mom and pop contractors throughout the United States and, some internationally, about 10,000.
Well, let's go back to TigerEye then. You got to double click on that. Why did you say, hey, this is worthy of my next venture that I'm going to go all in on and spend that time coding? Strategic sales intelligence. You talked maybe a little bit about this, but say again on a double click. Why the need now? What's the gap in the market that you're bridging?
Well, the thing I really enjoy right now is I do enjoy generative artificial intelligence. AI just generally is what it's called now. It's really fun for me. I'm into it both as a technologist and personally, and from product sense, it's quite interesting. And so for us, kind of going deeper into what the technology can bring, it's just basic business intelligence. I mean, I know it doesn't sound fun, but I guess I'll go a little deeper in my own career. My first job, my first major professional job was at Johns Hopkins Applied Physics Laboratory, where I worked on visualization and tracking software. Basically, radars would track missiles that were coming in. I worked on the software that would visualize, what was going on with the radars and the missiles that were coming in, and some of the optimization algorithms. I worked on the algorithms made them better and the things that visualized if the algorithms made them better or not, tried to debug what was going on up there. And I loved it. It's really fun for me, the visualization world and, data viz in general. And so for me, this is kind of kind of the end of what it used to be. It used to be a certain way. And with TigerEye, it's the future. We believe we're the first there, at least for the first that's built it from the ground up. There's a lot of marketing around what AI can do. We think we're the ones actually kind of providing some of it to businesses, but it's basically just artificial intelligence and business intelligence married together. So you just ask for dashboards and ask for charts, and it gives them to you, and they're high quality and testable and beautiful. And, you can actually see how they were composed and what they were made of, rather than kind of trusting something to kind of make it up. I got to admit, as the technology's there, it's still early. So right now we're kind of a combination of both, being able to generate these charts automatically with AI if the question's simple enough, or we ourselves and our team try to figure out what's going on and use the AI to answer it. We have an agent kind of mode that helps you write SQL, and we have a mode that just kind of builds out the query fully for you and gives it to you, depending on if you're more of a data person or more of a executive. Getting to it though, what's fun for me about this is I get to work with some of my old partners. When I was working with PlanGrid, I get to work with both, not quite competitors, but partners from that sense. They're some of our customers now with TigerEye, and being able to see a ton of businesses and the things like the way they model their business, the way they, their ups, their downs, the way they value their employees, like the challenges they have. I mean, I'm an investor. I still actively invest, and this is fascinating. I mean, it really is, getting to see hundreds of businesses internals. Now we're extremely secure, and I'm very lucky to be able to troubleshoot some of the problems myself, and be able to work with some of the founders and the CEOs to be able to get through it. But this is, I think, a real opportunity. I hope that answers the question.
So are you built off on top of a reporting software like Cognos, like Tableau, or is that homegrown as well?
Yeah, see, this is why I do this, right? Now you're getting to the real nuts and bolts of why I'm doing this.
Okay,
I'm building it by hand right now. I enjoy this. This is what I'd be doing. So after this podcast, I'll go figure out where the padding looks off in that one chart. Now, why decide I should have used something else, D3 or something. There's so many charting libraries out there, but all of them didn't quite service the needs of the AI kind of fast data world. They were all slow, buggy, and kind of hard to use, they weren't very good, honestly. So we wrote one from scratch in a language called Dart and Flutter. So it's cross-platform and very fast. And it's it's all using cool math and OpenGL backed. It's, it's very fun. I personally work on it. I still program. My team works on the harder problems. I get to work on the more UX kind of fun problems.
Why wouldn't you? I mean, there must be a reason here technically. That's why I'm going to ask you this question. Why wouldn't you just build the Gen AI on top of an existing reporting tool that's already out there? Why do you feel like you got to reinvent the reporting we see today?
Oh yeah, totally. Well, we do get a lot of inspiration from the tools that are out there. I'll give you there's parts. I tried a few of them. So Google Charts really are generally not interactive, and the APIs are very limited. For instance, you can't put a line chart and they could have improved it by now. So you never know. These things are always improving. So I'll put that note in there. But in general, it was hard to put a bar chart and a line chart together. In Flutter, there's a library called FL chart. Similar challenge. Hard to put a bar chart and a line chart together. Turns out that for doing financial metrics, financial folks really require charts to look an exact certain way, which is generally satisfied by Excel or something of that nature. And so to be able to get the charts to look exactly as they expect them to look required a totally custom charting library or Excel or something like that. Because we wrote our library to work directly with SQL, we're SQL based. Our technology is very tied into SQL. We love SQL. We think it's great. And so we wrote something that's also the other challenge. This is, I'm still always, one of our initial customers is a very large, it's kind of a startup, but it's a large startup. And so for them, they have a lot of data, and none of the charting libraries could actually handle it. They all sit around, I don't want to name the competitors that they're using, but they all sit around their business intelligence, one of the big ones out there, Tableau, Looker, Power BI, whatever. Yeah. It's one of those. And they all sit around it for 30 seconds as a leadership team. I think that's even generous. I think it's sometimes he said a minute and 30 seconds waiting for these charts to load. So we couldn't really white box any of them. The technology itself was kind of slow and hard to use. But this isn't the core of our tech. The core of our tech is AI. This is something I personally do for fun. And thankfully, we do have a mixture of junior and senior engineers of the team. Some of the junior engineers, they can plow through this. And sometimes, charting ends up being hard and you end up having to pull out graphics algorithms and bring in a senior engineer. But so far, proportionally, most of our time is spent on data problems and AI problems.
I mean, is it a data sprawl problem that's causing the performances, or is it a technology on top of it trying to aggregate disparate sources, or both?
Oh man, it's definitely both on that one. There's a lot of stuff going on there if you go through the customers as far as data sprawl. And, so to be clear with TigerEye, so everyone understands the solution, it's a one-stop shop. It like replaces a data analyst, or a data analyst would use this to be able to create charts months usually instead of a team of 8 folks, might just take one person. I mean, most data teams have like a ticketing system in Jira, where you've got to like work through your pipeline. This tool helps you kind of answer those questions a lot faster. So that's just a little bit of what it does. But to be able to do that, we can connect to Snowflake, we can connect to Databricks, we can connect to other data lakes and data warehouses. But a lot of companies we work with have not properly invested in data lakes or data warehouses. So we also do all of that as well. We can.
Yeah, but that means you're going to be moving their data, is it not? You're going to be,
yeah.
You do the movement of the data as well.
Yeah. We fully can replace it. If you use TigerEye, you don't need to use Redshift. You don't need to use Fivetran. You don't need to use the different tools to bring it together. Now you can though, because we have to augment the stacks that exist today, right? We don't want to completely replace it. One of the challenges we found was that many of the stacks were like kind of slow, like they weren't real time. They were 24-hour snapshots, and that a lot of the customers demanded information like immediately. So that was one of the reasons. We did, this is kind of the fun part about building a second company is all of our engineers were the best. Well, some of the best. There's a few we couldn't hire, but most of the best from our first company. And because of this, it allowed us kind of like invest in some kind of core technology, like, of a stronger modern ETL stack that's also able to deal with large data problems. And also another advantage of this, I want to put one note out there, is we're totally single tenant as well. So we can run this stack, Amazon, Microsoft, whatever, wherever you want to run it. We run Google in general. We run on GCS, but you can run it anywhere, which makes it very secure, makes it portable.
So you push it, like if a client came to you, you're pushing all their data to Google Cloud if you have a way. That's what if you have a choice.
If that's what, that's if they don't have a choice and it's TigerEye's choice, that's where we'll put it. If they want it somewhere different, we put it wherever they want it. Azure is normally the other thing that comes up pretty often.
What I don't understand, I guess I understand it, but I'm trying to understand the business model behind it. It would seem on the surface that it'd be a little bit risky that you'd be isolating your tech because it's like a not built here. Yeah, you say you'll work with Snowflake, you'll work with some of these other databases, but no, the real solution is we'll move your data, we'll put it in our, I guess, a database of choice. I don't know what database you're using. I presume you're not creating your own database, but you're creating at least a reporting tool, and then that's able to scale based on that data and able to give some of these reports via Gen AI on demand.
That's right. The idea here is, you need better margins as a company as the time goes on, right? You need things faster and cheaper, and being able to take, this is like maybe 6-7 vendors and a number of different people that have to manage the connections between them. And we generally streamline it. It's pretty easy to pull data. We're all SQL based, right? And when you have a SQL based system, getting it from one SQL system to another is like really, really straightforward. So portability is still there. It's not like you're certainly not locked in any way.
I guess what I'm still trying to understand is if I'm a client, of course, you could be tailoring yourself to startups. Maybe that's your clientele, the market you're looking for. You tell me. But
yeah.
It would seem like if I'm, most already have a reporting solution of some sort. Now, maybe it's not meeting their requirements. I'm at IBM, so it'd be Cognos. There's others, though, like you said, Looker. There's certainly Tableau. But if I'm a client that I've already vested in that, I want what you have. But doesn't it seem heavy? Now I got to move if I want to take advantage of what Ralph has.
You are talking about, a serious challenge we do have. Now, we do have one opportunity here. And for the clients that we do sell to on the enterprise side, because this is like startup versus enterprise. Startup, it's very straightforward, right? Less vendors. I'm a startup. I don't want to have to buy 10. I'm trying to build a business, right, and grow a company. I don't really want to have to worry about these problems. So it's a really easy sell. On the enterprise side, the way we go in is normally through teams. Because I'm not sure about you. You have to tell me tell me if you've ever seen this before. You don't have to speak for it personally. Okay. There's a huge federated data system, wheel and spoke, right? You got like a really strong data stack. You got a bunch of other teams that use the same system. They service it. The finance teams, whatever team is required is they're servicing their own data with a nice federated model and a bunch of good vendors that's selected from, say, some centralized team, IT, operations, whatever. But yet, being able to get an actual answer to a new question out of the team could take, a week or two. depending on your title, especially. Maybe executives could be a little faster. But if you're a product team or you're a marketing team, if you're like, oh, I need a new dashboard and I need to look at the growth rate in just EMEA this year versus last year, and I want to see it sliced by, let's say renewals. And that type of request we found for enterprises can be very slow and sometimes maybe not even like worthy of the other team asking it. So the way we come in is we come in selling directly to a team. That's why we can work with Databricks and Snowflake. So we obviously work with whatever federated models there, but we come in through the sales team or through the marketing team and sell directly to them, which is like a consultant would, basically answering questions. That's what we do, is we answer questions, right? So that's how we come. You've got a few core questions for your business you need answered this quarter. We come help you answer those. And so it's much more direct. It's less of a general sale at like an enterprise level. The way that I think this is really interesting is I think AI is much more suited at verticals, like going deep into something, not a horizontal approach. Like, for instance, I think if you're thinking of an AI business intelligence solution that's going to be truly horizontal, I think that's more like artificial general intelligence, which is like a really deep, complicated conversation. But I'd say it's not today, maybe not tomorrow. It's like, because to be able to generally answer something about supply chain and then generally answer something about a SaaS business and then generally answer something about medical suppliers is like, it's very difficult to do all of those things accurately. But if you go deep and you build an AI that's very trained for finance, an AI that's very trained for sales, you have an opportunity to sell directly to that team. That being said, we still have to respect the federated work that's gone into organizing the data and kind of getting it all there. And often it's quite good work, especially around CPQ. Sorry, I know I'm going over there, but like CPQ, configure price quote systems, create some very challenging data. Often the data teams have spent a lot of time getting that stuff into Snowflake, Redshift, or, Databricks, and we definitely take advantage of that. So it's we're an augmentation to the systems that exist already, and we do work together with those things.
A couple comments. One is, this is about TigerEye, so I'm listening to you first, but you asked, hey, have I seen this before? Look, honestly, so we've got a solution called Cognos. And for the most part, I see all kinds of things, but it will bring back those reports relatively quickly. However, there's always a however. I'm thinking from where you're sitting, that is assuming that you don't have a data or an infrastructure problem of some sort. So a lot of times what I do see is that you have a problem somewhere in the data. So my question to you is, do you spend a lot of your time really on the services to clean that stuff up and make and be able to retrieve that data in a performant way? Or is there the secret sauce of your solution, which we'll get to next?
That's a really good question. I think you've got a good idea of what we're building for that question. So that's is it the secret sauce? Yeah, maybe it's kind of obvious, but the dealing with the data cleanliness is something that AI is really, really good at, which is why it's not as important to spend we know that the data is going to look a little bad, and we know that people aren't going to fill out their data as well as people might expect. And we have models to expect that now. And we do work white glove to with our customers to make sure what we've got is accurate. Even if we try to pre-fill some of the stuff or understand things about their data automatically, we verify it with them. So it is I would say it's a much higher touch company than it was with my last company. That's for sure. And I enjoy it. That's actually a fun thing, is being able to kind of work closely with our customers in more of a partnership relation.
Well, you got to be a data guy then, because data's a mess. Most customers I do meet, they've been building lake houses, warehouses, all kinds of stuff, data lakes, data swamps. It becomes, I got to clean up my data so I can get the answers that I'm looking for. And then if you are providing those services and that expertise, man, I can certainly see that, because I'm doing that a lot. Hell, I got a whole podcast on it. It's making data simple, right? Because data is not simple if you let it go. Particularly, it gets out of hand quickly.
That's exactly right. That's it. It's we spend a lot of work on data quality. Now, I will say though, but we're not horizontal data. We don't deal with every company's data issues. We have we deal with finance issues, we deal with sales issues, we deal with marketing issues, and even in marketing, depending on how you do campaigns. There's a certain way you do campaigns where we're going to be very well set for you. And there's another way you do campaigns where we're still figuring it out right now.
Do this for me, though. There's got to be some secret sauce here.
Sure.
Now, you don't have to give the goods, but nobody can just walk out and create it anywhere. But geek out with me here for a bit and talk about some of the technology that you have behind it that differentiates your company.
Sure. Two things I think are the fun. They're a little boring, but that's how secret sauce often is they're like grinds, to really get the moat, you got to dig like really deep and fill it with water and stuff. It's like painful work. And so some of that painful work is evaluation. We spend a lot of time evaluating our AI, how we've trained it, and the different foundational models that we use to back it. So we support right now OpenAI. We support as well Anthropic recently. And we also have Gemini. Those are our three foundational models we support. We do research on models all the time. So we have a few more that are in the hopper. And then against those three models, we have maybe about 1,000 questions that are all the types of questions a finance, sales, or marketing person would ask. And we have these questions with example sets. Like in computer science, they're called like integration tests. We have like full suites of integration tests on all the different ways people would ask questions, follow-up questions, and the different types of SQL it would generate for these. It's quite painful. It's a lot of work to generate that much stuff, but you need it to be able to train the AI appropriately, to be able to answer things with very high accuracy. So the moat we're kind of building is like a ton of evaluation work. Also, some of our patents we're looking at right now are how you evaluate things, right? Like think of this for example. There's two ways. There's in programming, there's an infinite ways. So you could like write two sets of code that could both come up with a good answer, right? And so understanding like both of them could be right as the answer, but one of them could be very complicated in how it's structured or slow, and then the other one could be very clean or fast. There's different ways you could compare it. Same problem with SQL, how you generate these two different SQL statements. And some days, the AI generates it one way, some days it generates it the other, and we have ways of trying to check and see like which one's how close are these things? How semantically correct are these two approaches? So those are like on the boring side, a little bit of what we're up to. The rest of it, I think,
I don't find that boring, by the way. Keep going.
Oh, good. Oh, good. I'm glad. I mean, it's like we have a few PhDs on the team, and that's where they spend their time is doing evaluations and going through evaluation frameworks for these things. But yeah, please.
A couple follow-ups then. So here's what I heard. Two things. If I say this wrong, please correct me. One is you're evaluating the LLMs that you're going to use, which I have some follow-on on that. And then part of your secret sauce is being able to do some of the training, likely around follow-up. You mentioned like follow-up questions, will be asked so that the algorithms are ready for it. So that helps with the performance and everything we're talking about, getting the accuracy of the answers. Yes?
That's right.
Well, so let me start with the second one first. Is that like a RAG implementation then you're using?
Oh yeah, we use a variety of different. We do a tiny bit of fine tuning, but most, I think most RAG is great. It's very simple. It's been around for a while. I'd say it's definitely a core part of our AI strategy.
Let me keep going. On the first one though, here's the question I have. So I got you on the OpenAI, Anthropic, Gemini. Like I'm here at IBM. We have some of our own. They're called Granite models, and I know this is the company line, but I believe in this. That's where I'm going with this. Is I foresee, and I've said this many times on the podcast, people are probably rolling their eyes that listen to this podcast all the time because I think we're going to get more and more to purpose-driven LLMs versus an OpenAI or otherwise, because I don't know how it's affordable. Because the inferencing cost for these big models is expensive, and it's going to get more expensive. How are you dealing with that if you're using the likes of like OpenAI or others?
Well, you're actually hitting me on one of my, if I dork out, like, if we're having a beer and you want to talk about AI, this is where I get a little, like, this is where I talk too much. This is where I get a little too dorky. Is because me personally, I love local models. Like, I spend a lot of my personal time running models locally. There's lots of ways to do it. I like doing it sometimes as efficiently as possible. I like sometimes just using, Olama or something, just playing around with whatever the newest stuff is. But the way that we work on it and the way we think of it is it's happening right now. I don't know. It's not quite DeepSeek R1 yet, but that was one of the last ones I evaluated that was quite fun. A lot of the stuff on Qwen we're interested in. It's quite fun too there. But, hey, Mistral still has some good models too. The important thing is a lot of these are open source models that we can distill ourselves, that we can quantize ourselves, that we can make smaller. And so the way we build out our system as an agent system, we're an agent-like system, just like everything else. And so we potentially, and we only do this in one place right now. So RAG and prompt engineering has gotten us really far, honestly, is the way we need to go. But when it comes to performance, we can replace certain parts of the system because we have a router that kind of picks where you go. What kind of question is this? Is this like a quantitative question? Is this a qualitative question? Is this a question about how I am? What am I as an agent, right? Because the first thing somebody does when you give someone something that writes SQL, the first thing they do is like, what do you do? And the SQL thing's like, let me write some SQL for you, right? So like, it's a little challenging. So we have a router that picks what kind of answer it is and guides it to a home where it answers a specialized question. What we're trying to do right now as a company is we're building up enough of a corpus of questions and answers and data we can train off of to start specializing and doing a bit of, this is, I don't want to geek out too hard, but basically just like, taking a bigger model and distilling it down to a smaller model and running it ourselves in a very compact form. And since we've spent so long evaluating things, we already have an evaluation framework. By the time, because we've already seen this with Microsoft's Model 5 is kind of like this too. There's some really good small models out there. And it's not quite there for us. It's still cheaper and easier to just use OpenAI or Gemini or something. But when the time comes when we need to start taking a look at our own costs, that we'll be able to just switch to a few of these small models for the places we send things to the most in the router and the things that are easiest solved by high training of a smaller model.
But if any of the models today, you have any of them in production, and are you able to control that expense on inferencing, like with an OpenAI? I don't. The serious question. I don't know how you do it because it looks good on the surface, but it adds up quickly. And I guess the second part to that question, not probably good to ask a two-part question, but you mentioned this as well, and that's agents or agentic AI, which we're heading towards, which is just going to create the proliferation of tokens, and I think it's going to create even more expense. That's going to go through the roof if we don't get these small models, purpose-built models. Like you could have a model that has been trained and purpose-built for your reporting, your BI, or whatever the case may be, using some of your follow-on questions that you talked about. I could see that and being extremely valuable. I just don't know how it's affordable. I mean, I'm genuinely trying to learn. If you've got it in production and you're able to afford it, I'd like to know how.
Oh, well, I mean, as a startup that's like just, that's like, we're early stage startup, right? We're very, very, very thankful for our growth, but we're still on the earlier side. So being able to spend, we're still in the state where we believe that we'll be able to spend money on models right now and the cost will go down. We believe that as well through testing the models. You know what I mean? Like, I think some of those models I just mentioned, particularly.
But won't the inferencing cost kill the client that's buying your model, your solution?
We just run it ourselves. We don't need to worry about inferencing it, because we're technically sophisticated, running it we need that.
So they run it on it's kind of like what I want to say, essentially you're providing the service.
Yeah.
It's all on your infrastructure, essentially in cloud.
It's a little too expensive to do it right now. So just to be clear, you're right with your ideas here. Like when we tried to do it with Llama initially, and we served it ourselves. It was just so much more cost effective to use OpenAI, which is why we ended up just going with OpenAI and then going with some of the general inference models. But for the smaller models, right, and as they get better and better, and we're not doing this yet with small models. To be clear, this is something we're still just using the larger inference,
Fair.
just those ones. But for the smaller models, we do believe that. What's the biggest drawback is the number of questions and answers to be able to properly fine tune the smaller models. Fine tuning is a strong word. I'm not really super interested in that, but to be able to quantize or be able to basically do any of the other techniques to make a model smaller, it needs a lot more data. That we're still gathering data. So that's where we're at right now. We're actually, the way we look at it from a business perspective is it's worth the token cost to gather the questions and answers and feedback anyways.
One thing is just an aside you might think about, here at IBM, look, we don't care what model you use. We have our own models. They're called Granite models, but they are purpose-built models. The one thing that is really cool, because I've heard you say fine-tuning, I heard you say RAG, we've got a third option. It's called InstructLab, all open source. Works on our Granite models that are already small in nature. And what it does is it changes the parameters of that model itself based on your data. So it's kind of a mix between fine-tuning that proliferates the number of models you have, because that's kind of the problem there. With RAG, you got to do some work there, and we're not going to get rid of RAG. Like you say, RAG's been around for a while. I think it's going to be around for quite a while in the future, but this will allow you to train the existing or model, so it's like a new model based on your data. Just something to think about as you go forward. Anything else you want to say about TigerEye. By the way, I like the name.
Well, let's see here. What's important to understand here? In the enterprise space, this is still very new for folks. TigerEye, we spend a lot of time on compliance, ISO, SOC 2 Type 2, you name it on the security side. There's even some new AI compliance, ISO 87, I forget exactly the number. It's like 87001.
Right.
We're also in the middle of pursuing that. I would say enterprise, it's still new. We really like talking to people in the enterprise space. We really like the conversation about this, like what kind of models people like using, what kind of challenges folks have. Startups are really easy to work with because they're also new. They also have such obvious challenges, but enterprise has a lot of data and there's a lot of value to add there. So that's all I'd say. It's always an interesting conversation when we're talking about enterprise AI. And I would agree with you about what you're saying about purpose-built models. If that's I didn't know that was IBM's business tagline for AI. I think that's cool. It totally fits our vision. That's the way we see the future, and that's the way we build our architecture to support that. So I'll check out. Also, final note: love open source stuff in the AI world. I think that's. I mean, that's it's just so that's going to help us move faster than anything else. So I'll definitely check it out.
Totally. I mean, that's another pet peeve of mine is OpenAI. They've done a lot of good. I mean, they got everybody interested in this stuff. So kudos, but they're not open. I mean, it says OpenAI. Let's just be honest. They're not open. This closed AI. That would be a better name, but it probably is not as catchy. Hey, but one thing I still don't understand, you didn't really answer this from the beginning. So coming back up like at a higher altitude again, there must have been a problem around reporting that you were running into in your last company. Is that what you were saying?
Oh, you wanted me to go a little deeper into that?
Something hit you and you said, I got to start this company.
Well, I mean, was it the moment that my CFO took that eight-person team's Looker dashboard that they created and worked on for like 2 months with the CFO's team? And I like the CFO. The CFO is awesome. So if he's, I love this guy. But like they worked on it together. And this guy took this dashboard and just threw it out so hard, because I could see it from the board level, right? I could see it's like, dude, this was a waste of time. Like I just wasted 8-person's time. That team, by the way, that data team, they all quit. All of them. All of them quit within like a few months. Huh? Yeah, I had enough, man. It was like, that's just, sure. I wasn't I helped build it. I'll take responsibility for it. I don't think I was managing it at the time, but regardless, it was my fault that it happened. So I was like, damn, that didn't work. I need to figure out that one. It might've been that. It could have been the sales leader though. It could have been the sales leader with the notebook. We had this sales leader that had a notebook. In their notebook was the forecast, right? And it was like, it was captured over time so you could catch the projection. And what you didn't realize was that like all tools nowadays were built in such a way that you couldn't access time. They were like not time aware. And so like this guy's notebook ended up being really important. It was like a joke, like, haha, if this guy gets hit by a bus, like we better like get that notebook or else our business is fucked. We were like a multi-million-dollar company, I mean, this was crazy, like tens of millions, like 30 million. I don't remember exactly where it was, but it was like a lot of millions in this guy's notebook. And that was shocking to me. It's funny, the notebook, and it's kind of like but the symbol is not that. The symbol is that there was way too much information in that guy's head and that we weren't making data-based strategic decisions as a company, as a group. It was all like just, how we figured out the territory plan? You'd have to go to the desk of the sales leader, stand in front of his desk and look at the map on the wall. And it was like hand drawn or like kind of erased there, of where the different parts are that people owned. A company that doesn't make database decisions, it really can struggle at growing. And that's what happened at PlanGrid. We struggled to grow. And when we were trying to unpeel the onion, what's going on here with the data, it was a real struggle for us. And it stopped, it was great. We sold a successful company. I would never, very, very thankful for the outcome we had and very thankful for Autodesk. But surprisingly enough, it was a failure state. We were struggling with our competitor. Our competitors were beating us. Our growth was stale. Our Series C outcomes were weak. And we were in a very good negotiating position with Autodesk. So I'm very thankful. We had a great outcome as a company. But at the time that we made that decision, we probably would not have sold had we had made better outcomes. And one of the major reasons we attributed to not being able to grow was not being able to properly up-level our leadership and properly replace them. Just to be clear, as founders, we couldn't replace our sales leader. We didn't know how to, he had the notebook, right? Like we didn't know how to even up-level him. We weren't good enough.
What's funny is everything you said is spoken like a true entrepreneur. And the reason I say that is because it's like, well, from the outside, you would look at the opportunity and you'd say, look, you guys hugely successful. I mean, Autodesk, I do have the numbers, right? 875 million, right?
Yeah.
So, to most people, that's like a home run, right? But I've had several like startup founders on and entrepreneurs and different things like that. I was just reading the book Amp It Up. Long and short of it is most of the time I talk to these entrepreneurs, what seems like a great outcome, they're still like thinking about it. They're still like saying, well, if we could have done this and we could have done that or that.
That's almost the reason. It's almost the reason I'm doing it again. Like that's the reason I have that logical fallacy right there. Is the reason I started another company. I'm enjoying it so much.
Yeah, I can see that. I can see that. Hey, look, where can folks reach you and where can they reach TigerEye?
Oh, okay. Easy, easy. My name's Ralph. Ralph at TigerEye.com. Just Tiger Eye, and then Ralph at TigerEye. I would love to chat with anybody. Easy to find us. Easy to chat with.
Hey, a couple questions before I let you go, though. I can't let you go that easy. Look, I read a couple of your blogs, and I want you to just kind of talk to the listeners
Sure.
about it. One of the blogs was a recent blog that said AI coding assistants are reshaping engineering, not replacing engineers. Obviously,
Yep.
you put that not replacing engineers there for a purpose. You talk about how they're pretty good. They lack intuition. Could you walk through some of your thinking on that?
Oh yeah, sure. I mean, it really falls apart pretty quickly for any type of complicated question. I mean, I think trying to put together you can build some good products with AI right now. Really, it's impressive. Sleep timers, I mean, I had an open source Android app that was like top 100 and I got like pressed for it for building a timer at one point in time. That was a high bar building a timer on Android. Now AI just like pounds these things out like no one's problem. So it's impressive. And if you're a timer writer or you're writing like, a photo sharing app, you better be careful because AI is coming for you. But like, mostly the problems we got to solve are like interconnected pieces with some weird ass toolkit or some library that AI is out of date with its docs. It can't really it kind of falls apart really quickly. Like, I get it to crush some graphics problems lately. Like I personally, as a developer, am loving it for graphics problems. I have some shader issues. I'm not great at writing shaders. I'm okay at it. It's not my specialty. I don't want to be better at it. I'm done with I just want it to look good. I don't want to get better at writing shaders. So for me, I use AI. It works really well for it. But man, like it's just once you get to anything more complicated from a systems architecture level, multiple files, you can barely hit. I mean, it's really, the refactoring suggestions and stuff. I mean, I don't know. Maybe if you're running I don't mean to be, I'll name names here, but if you're running a very junior team, you've got a real sloppy code base, I think AI will probably make good suggestions. So would static analysis. Static analysis would also probably make even better suggestions. Maybe just following the guidelines for whatever language you're using. But in general, we found that once you get to like systems level stuff, once you use multiple files, once you're using a language or any type of tool that's not old, I mean, if you're using like Python 2, if everything you're doing is already baked in, it's very standard and it's well documented, it's been there for 10 years, AI is probably better at generating code for it. But if anything's new with a toolkit or you got anything that's multiple files, or you're working across code that was written by multiple people, it really falls flat on its face in like a strong way. Like it generates such crazy. I mean, it's crazy. You can't. The worst part is you do it and it looks good for a second. You're like, oh my gosh, and then you start reading it and it's like, whoa, this is like nothing. It's like doesn't make sense, and it's hard. It's so hard to debug somebody else's crazy doesn't make sense code that looks good at first flush. I mean, it's like all of our senior engineers know the challenges of AI, and we all use it daily. We love it, but we would never think it replaces an engineer. Just from the, I mean,
It's complementary. It's augmented intelligence. Yeah, I agree with you on that. All right, now I got two more questions, both unrelated, both pretty high level, both about you. What did you do at Pixar and Sony? What was your role there?
At Pixar, my boss, I love my old boss, and I'll always explain it the same way. He said it the right way. He said, "We're the people in the basement for the people in the basement," right? Like it's like that low. It's like I was in, yeah. Like there's people in the basement. They would call us. We're like in a deeper basement than them. They didn't even know we existed. We did data. It was data problems. My career is data, right? That's the trend. I worked for the data management group. And one point in time, my office was outside the server farm at Pixar. And this was before the cloud existed. So that was like all the movies were there, right? So it was very valuable. And like there was a spray, like a non-liquid foam spray, like the super high quality one, and like a fire door. Like if a fire broke out, like I was getting sprayed. Like I'm in, stuff happened. I had a job to do when a fire broke out, like something, like I had to react. I mean, these movies were it was a fun job. I worked as a rendering queue manager. It was like this great job. I'm a queuing theorist as a mathematician. And so there's part of a render pipeline. And so it basically, when you build a movie, you have to take a bunch of still frames and composite them together. Because in the end, everything's 2D. Everything's 3D, but then you take the 3D, turn it into 2D. It's a composition process. It's all done in Unix. That's also one of my interests is Linux, Unix, other alternative operating systems. And so I worked as a queuing person there, and I loved it. It was I worked on graphics problems as well, which was the reason I was able to make a blueprint on an iPad app. Is I at Pixar worked on PDF issues, very weird, esoteric PDF issues of huge PDFs. You would only have this problem if you took a giant image and you put it on a huge PDF, and that's my specialty. And that's exactly what construction does. They take giant images and they put it on a huge PDF. So that's what I dealt with at Pixar was graphics problems and rendering issues. Yeah.
Fantastic.
And then at Sony, I helped build the first Android phone from Sony. I actually worked with Google and Sony building Android 1.0 phone before the first Android phone was launched. So we had like the little weird old Google phone from the past, and I was one of the first Android folks. I really loved it.
Awesome. All right, I got a question. My favorite question to ask. I've been asking it lately, and that is, what do you think is true about AI? All right, follow me here. What do you think is true about AI, but nobody else agrees with you on?
It's kind of tricky because, we just spent a while talking about purpose-built models, but trying to productionize a low-level model is surprisingly tricky, and I think very important. And I don't think enterprises really think about this yet. And it's surprising to me how many enterprise conversations I've had where they really don't care or know what kind of foundational model they want to use. They don't care or know about their data transportation and where the data is going through. And being able to use like purpose-built models and getting them like closer to the source of the data, it makes it so there's less transport, and like you're not throwing things over a wire to, vendor A or vendor B or wherever, some inference provider that then sends it to vendor A to vendor B. Keeping it tight is really important. And I was surprised that data, it also furthermore, compliance around AI and these things did not come up very often from an enterprise perspective. I think they're very important around how data is used and how. Yeah, it's not very often. So not quite disagreement, but I would say like some more awareness over the security and quality and like kind of compliance of data providers, I think would really, when we were like, I'll name one name, like Cursor's initial data compliance was kind of weak. They're good now. I'm not trying to when Cursor was first introduced to us, they had barely had ZDK. That's a lot of data and a lot of code you're suddenly sending over to some other provider, and they use inference, right? They use an inference provider. At least they did use one called Fireworks. So not only were you sharing all your code with that vendor, you were also sharing it with all the other vendors that they use for all their ETL and transportation process, which is numerous.
Very good. Very good. Look, I agree with you. I think governance is so critical, but some of the enterprise companies, I think maybe it's a time to market thing. They're just too busy and think, everything's going to work out. Meanwhile, they're using models with copyright data, all this kind of, they don't even think about it. Anyway, it is a major, major concern, but I'm thinking about it. This is it. I find this will be the last question. What do you do for fun when you're not doing all this coding?
Okay. I'll put aside the playing. I really do enjoy it. Okay. It actually is probably like a few of my funs right now. I really enjoy playing video games with my kids. I don't play any video games myself, so I play like co-op games with my kids, and that is extraordinarily fun. My favorite game right now, Spider Heck. It's an older game, but you basically play spiders and like fight each other with laser swords. It's very fun, very enjoyable. I've got 3 boys, and one girl, so it's the spider game kind of helps it all. Otherwise, maybe I enjoy hiking. Hiking's just disconnect, no cell. I like hiking where there's no cell phone service. You don't even have a choice. You've got to bring a satellite phone. Awesome,
that is good. But the girl's got to be beating all the boy, no?
She's so much better at the video games than them too. It's pretty painful. It's like she's better at it. She really, it hurts. It hurts.
Awesome. Hey, Ralph, thank you for being here. I greatly appreciate it. It was a good discussion.
Good chatting with you. I really enjoyed it.
All right. Hey, Making Data Simple listeners, thank you for listening to us today. Again, I'm going to give you the email, almartintalksdata@gmail.com. Reach out to us at any time. Until next time, we'll see you on the podcast. Bye-bye.